Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 185 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. I am your host, the Orange Tank Neilan, and with me, as always, are the red, green, and blue tanks, Kellen, Mark, and Christina. How are you all doing?
Hello.
Hello.
When there's food, there's a Christina.
They don't even know the topic yet, Kellen.
Well, that's as good a segue as we're going to get, because Christina did tell us not that long ago that no one knows more about this topic than her. We are creating a 4-course meal in board games this week on the show. We're going to be laying out the games that we would choose for our appetizers, our amuse-bouche, if that's how you pronounce that, our entrees, and our dessert. We're going to be creating a whole board game evening with games that sort of fit into each of these little categories that build towards something, have some sort of connective tissue towards them, whether that's theme or gameplay style. That's up to each of us to decide. This topic was suggested to us by Habilis over in our Discord, which is a great way to leave us feedback or suggest topics for the show. That's at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. Thank you so much, Habilis, for this topic. I think this is a really fun idea, and I'm curious to see how we each dig into it differently. But before we get there, we're going to be talking about some amazing...
But before we get there, Neilan, we have some unfinished business from last week to discuss about science fiction-based games.
Oh, no.
You both led a chorus of people across the internet saying, "Oh, Imperial 2030, it's not science fiction. Oh, what's science fiction?" No, Neilan, stop, Neilan. Don't say a word. Don't say a word. Are any of you familiar with Amazon Turk?
Yes.
Yes.
Only because I told you what it was.
I helped write the question.
Amazon Turk is a service that you can use where if you need CAPTCHAs filled out or if you need them to check websites to pull keywords for you, you can pay a bunch of different workers, a penny, 2 pennies, 3 pennies. So what did I do? I asked 100 users to tell me if the Imperial 2030 box cover depicted science fiction or not.
Okay. Not our argument, but go ahead.
I paid them 5 cents per person out of our Patreon funds. What do you think about that?
I think you should not disclose that to our Patreons because as a ridiculous use of their money.
And are you ready for the results?
Yes.
It was a little underwhelming. 57 out of 100 believe that Imperial 2030 is science fiction. Okay. But I knew what your objections were going to be, Mark, right? What are your objections?
That the box cover, first of all, it does not scream science fiction.
That's not the objection.
Okay. What was my objection again, Kellen?
Who are these people?
Oh, yeah. Who are these people was my objection.
Great. So I reran the test, but this time I said they had to be college educated in order to use the quest. And I spent another $5 of the patron funds. And this time, 61 said it depicted science fiction. Ergo, I think this could be peer-reviewed. I'm not exactly sure. But that means that the more educated you are, the more likely you are to think that Imperial 2030 is in fact science fiction.
Wow.
Neilan's in Mensa.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Christina.
And Mark.
Yes, there you go.
Can I rest my case,
Did we poll 100 Mensa people?
officers?
Yeah, why didn't you do the survey with only Mensa people, Kellen?
That's right. That's the only true way to do a survey.
I also want to actually point out, I was on your side in this.
I won't hear it and I won't respond to it.
Let's get into the games that we've been playing. And this week on the show, we're going to be talking about Sequoia, the Mind Extreme and MicroMacro Crime City. So let's kick it off with Kellen and Christina. Tell us about Sequoia.
Christina and I went on a trip, and I always end up bringing more games than I will ever possibly get played, but I think that's the story of any board gamer. And we got to play with my family a game called Sequoia, which is in the same line of games as Mountain Goats, another push your luck game that we all played as a podcast and enjoyed. Sequoia is a very, very straightforward game where you are rolling 5 dice and putting them into 2 pairs of dice and then adding a tree to that card. So if you roll 2 dice, you get a 2, you get a 3, put a trunk on 5. And that happens simultaneously. And then you do that 10 times, and then you score the areas of the board. So literally everyone is rolling their personal 5 dice immediately, deciding how to break them up, and then slowly competing in sort of an area majority game where at the beginning of the game you randomly decide, oh, the 7 is worth 6 if you're in first place and 3 if you're in second place. If this sounds ultra straightforward, it's because it is. I think the only thing that is a bit of a wrinkle is the tiebreaker, which is that if there is a tie for first, you go into this tiebreaker round where you then keep rolling dice past the 10th round into the 11th, into the 12th round. Sequoia uses some of the same cards or close to the same cards as Mountain Goats, so they're huge. The tree trunks are pretty. It has a fun table presence. This is light. This is good. I think what it has over Mountain Goats is the ability to play simultaneously, which is nice and pleasant. Everyone is engaged the whole time. Christina, what did you think of Sequoia?
I thought Sequoia was beautiful, for one. I think the art is undeniably pretty. The theme is also fun. I like trees, so that is always a theme that I'm excited about. I think that the tiebreaker rule that Kellen mentioned is not something to be overlooked. That is basically the game, at least at the player count that we were playing at, which is to say that you really have to think about those tiebreakers more than anything else, or more than you think you will. I liked it and I had fun. Like Kellen said, it was simultaneous play. It was quick. It was funny because if anybody took longer than 2 seconds, we started shaking our dice at each other to say, hurry up and finish and roll your dice again. But I just liked Mountain Goats so much better than this. And I think it's hard not to compare them one to one when they do feel so similar. And I would just rather play Mountain Goats pretty much every time.
I think that's probably right. I think in this context of, 5 people all playing the game together at once, this had a little bit of charm to it that Mountain Goats may have gotten tedious. I'm still trying to figure out, and we played this a couple of times, I'm still trying to figure out, you actually may want to get into multiple ties, but if there's a tie on like the 12, for example, and 2 people are just rolling off, the game is literally like, who can roll 2 6s first?
Well, and I think that's what I mean when I say like the tiebreakers felt like the whole game. We spent almost as much time during the tiebreaker phase as we did during the first part of the game. And it really just felt so luck driven toward the end. And I know that that's not necessarily the case because in the beginning of the game, I could have been more strategic, but it really felt kind of like, okay, well, with this many players now, we're just rolling the dice and whoever happens to get the numbers that they need, like literally I can only get these 2 sets of numbers. And if you get it before me, then I lose. So it felt kind of annoying, I think, in that sense.
I will say the saving grace here is that the game actually tells you to roll your dice, allocate them, and then all reveal together at the same time. As anyone who's played a big group game knows, that never happens, and people are like way ahead of other people. But by about the 5th or the 6th round, my mother realized that she didn't want to be playing first. And so up until that point, she had been playing first, but then all of a sudden it got very competitive for those spots. And she was like, no, wait, we're all revealing at once. And I thought that was fun and pleasant in that little moment. But it is definitely not as good as Mountain Goats, I would say, for sure. But I enjoyed playing Sequoia, and I'm not ready to get rid of it yet.
I agree. I think for the group we had, very fun, very light, not as strategic as Mountain Goats.
It's interesting seeing that these are 2 games in this triple Kickstarter that had just these 3 10-minute games. And you even saying that there is that much of sort of an overlap kind of between like how Sequoia and Mountain Goats feels really odd to me, especially if it's like, okay, if you guys both think that Mountain Goats is the superior of the 2, you'd think that they wanted to have diversified that a little bit more. Have you tried the third one, Kellen? Have you tried GPS?
I opened up GPS and saw that it had a spinner in it, and the spinner was so bad at spinning that I went online and saw that a bunch of people were buying optional like parts to make it actually work. Combine that with the fact that it's actually the least well-received one of the 3 made me kind of go, I don't know, I'm not going to buy the spinner for this thing. But I will play it. I am committed to playing it.
I am delighted by these games enough that I will definitely play GPS. And like Kellen said, I'm not ready to get rid of Sequoia. It's beautiful. It's fun for the right group. I just like Mountain Goats better.
I do think you could reuse the cards, though, from Mountain Goats in Sequoia. Like, literally, they're very close to being exactly the same. So there's a little bit of a question mark there. We're kind of hurting the Sequoia when we could be saving them.
That is Sequoia.
One of the games that I played in the last week is the Mind Extreme. This is a extreme, upgraded, advanced version of the Mind. For those who are not familiar with what the Mind is a game where you are cooperatively trying to arrange cards in ascending order. Everyone has a hand of cards. All the cards in the game, there's one each from 1 to 100. But you cannot communicate, you cannot talk. You're just laying down a card in real time at the point that you think it is the correct time for the next number in everyone's collective hands. Once everyone's hand is empty, and assuming you haven't messed up along the way, you proceed to the next level in which you're going to get more cards and repeat the same thing over again. The Mind Extreme, the core simple twist on this is that you're effectively playing 2 games of the mind simultaneously. So you still have 100 cards. You have the cards numbered 1 to 50 and the cards numbered 51 to 100, but you're going to be playing them each in 2 different piles. They're colored differently depending on which half of the deck they're in. And in one pile, you're going to be playing in ascending order, and in one pile, you're going to be playing in descending order. So you're kind of evaluating at any given time when you're at the correct position time-wise to play to either pile. And that's kind of the main twist going on. It's enough of a twist up in difficulty for people that, you've played the Mind enough times at this point that it's a little bit samey. The Mind Extreme injects a little bit of advanced play into it. And it has one more interesting little twist, which is that on some levels, you're required to play either stack blind, so you're going to be playing those cards face down and only checking whether they're correct at the end. But otherwise, the rest of the rules work more or less the same. When someone messes up, you lose a life. You can use the throwing stars, in which case you reveal either a card from one pile or the other pile, and that's it. You keep going until you mess up enough times where you get through all of the levels and win, which happens very, very rarely. I would say that if you are a huge fan of the Mind, and, I don't think there's necessarily a game that has, massive, long-lasting fans, but I will say this about the Mind. I still break it out occasionally in new groups just for the purpose of showing people, hey, this is a fun little board game, especially for people who haven't played a lot of board games. It's an interesting idea that they may never have seen before. So if you have at least a mixed group of people that have played it before and some that have played it less than others, the Mind Extreme might be a way to at least keep yourself a little bit more invested in what's going on while ratcheting up the difficulty a little bit more. So not nothing, but not a wholehearted recommendation from me.
So what about for a group that hasn't played either? Could they go straight to the Mind Extreme?
I wouldn't. I think you theoretically could, right? You'd have to explain, obviously, everything up front and explain, how all the piles work. And I just think you'd have a harder onboarding experience. But depending on the experience level of your group, I think you probably could. I just think that there's a more natural progression to just showing someone the Mind because it's a simpler, cleaner idea. If they've not played either, it's a bigger aha moment than the complexity that Extreme layers on.
Same bad art?
Yeah, no real improvement there. I mean, there's more detail. Yeah, it's bunnies and shurikens and weird mystical forces, and that's about it. That is The Mind Extreme by Pandasaurus. Mark, tell us about MicroMacro Crime City.
Spiel des Jahres winner.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I got a chance to play the latest winner of the Spiel des Jahres, Game of the Year, the German award for Game of the Year, the most prestigious award, I think, in board gaming.
This game is like Where's Waldo?
You're stealing my thunder.
No, this is the part where Mark says again, that was what... Okay, never mind. We can cut it.
Literally, we discussed this before the show started, that I was going to compare it to Where's Waldo.
Oh, you've done that to me, sir. You have done that to me.
So... I'll ask you to cast your minds back to opening that book of Where's Waldo. So imagine you're playing Where's Waldo, and me saying you're playing Where's Waldo is a weird thing to say, because are you playing Where's Waldo, or is Waldo playing you? No. So imagine opening...
My understanding was that once you started playing Where's Waldo, you were always playing Where's Waldo.
That's correct.
You could never stop,
Yes.
We're all still playing Where's Waldo right now.
Fun fact, I grew up playing Where's Wally, which I believe is called in the UK. Yep.
Why is that? What's the point of that?
Does he look the same?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Where's Wally was first and Waldo was the Americanization of it.
Kellen,
but I could be wrong about that.
Kellen, fact check.
We have a real-time fact checker. long-time listeners will know that.
Where's Wally is a British series of children's puzzle books called Where's Waldo in North America.
Why don't we just call it Where's Wally?
Why?
You tell me, Mark. You can't handle sorcerers.
Kellen.
They have to become
He's the New Yorker.
philosophers. Have to become sorcerers. Like you do this all the time.
It's ridiculous.
I prefer I Spy.
Anyhow, imagine you open up your book of Where's Wally, Where's Waldo, depending on your geography, and you look and you find Waldo or Wally, and he's dead. Okay? He's lying on the ground, he's dead. And then next to Waldo or Wally, you see a masked figure behind the dead Waldo/Wally, and you look up on the picture and you see them menacingly coming at Wally/Waldo, and you look higher on the picture and you see them maybe step out of a car that they were tailing Waldo in. And basically what you have there, this mental game of Where's Waldo/Wally that I've just conjured in your mind, is what you get with MicroMacro Crime City. MicroMacro Crime City is
he called Wally or Waldo in MicroMacro Crime City?
Depends on the mission you're on. There are 12 missions in the game. Thank you for that segue, Christina. Sorry, there are 16 missions. So there are 16 cases in this game. They all come in these little wax paper envelopes. But the biggest part of this game is this massive map that comes in it. It's a huge, huge map where the artwork is quite micro, quite small. In fact, it comes with a little magnifying, not glass, but little plastic that you can use to magnify the artwork. Thankfully, in my plays of it, we didn't find that we needed it because I think that would be annoying, but I guess it can help for those who have issues with that. But what happens in MicroMacro Crime City is you will open a case, this little envelope, and it will tell you, okay, this is the person that is dead. And they'll have a little picture of them. And sometimes they'll tell you where on the board they are, like in the north corner. They were killed near the park. They were killed, near the water. And so you find the person. And then the next card will ask you a question about why were they murdered? Who murdered them? And so you'll start looking at the picture and you'll find something that will indicate the reason they were murdered, who murdered them. And then it might ask you, why did they murder them? And that seems like a question that would be quite hard to answer just based on that little picture that you've found on the board. But if you, and this is sort of an interesting thing where it sort of plays with time on it's a static picture, but if you, as I sort of was alluding to with the Waldo-Wally comparison, if you sort of see where the perpetrator is coming from or the way they're walking and you sort of trace back, you'll find where they've sort of come from. And you can sort of trace people's movements all along this, again, massive, massive map on the board. And so that's basically what it is. You'll answer one question, which will lead you to another question, will lead you to another question. And then in most cases, there are about 7 questions that you answer until you've completed the case. There are 16 cases in the game of varying difficulties. We went through some of the introductory ones and then decided to jump directly to one of the most advanced cases. And I would say the earlier ones are quite simple and the harder ones are quite a bit more difficult. And I think for the limited method of portraying a story, this one static picture, it does a good job of being clever about why somebody killed somebody. You can sort of like piece together the story. And that is an interesting sort of facet to the game. I played this 2 players, and I think that's probably where you want to be. I think you want to play this 2 or 3 players. You can certainly play it with 1 player, but I think it sort of saps the fun. I think you want to share the aha moments where you find something with somebody, but I don't think you'd ever want to play it with more than that, because even though, again, the map is massive, you often know where you should be looking at, and therefore, you don't want everybody crowding around one spot. It sort of would drag, I imagine. But in terms of like a final judgment about the game, it's clever. It's very quick. Our introductory missions probably were sub 10 minutes, and our advanced mission was probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So they're all quick, and to say it's not offensive is not giving the game enough credit. It's fun. It is fun, but it'll never be like my favorite game. It's a game, if this goes without saying, I think that once you've played through it, you couldn't play it again because now that you know the missions, you're sort of done. So there's that limited replayability to it. But also, it is a sort of advanced Where's Waldo, Where's Wally sort of game. I mean, that's what it is. So when I say that, the game that you're sort of imagining is pretty much what you've got here. I mean, that's what it is. So it's a game that I would recommend. It's a game whose cleverness is probably enough to encourage somebody to pick it up and try it, because it is clever and it's easy enough to explain the rules. You can get going in no time. It is strangely, I think, not safe for children because, as the title implies, this is Crime City, and it's some of the things that are going on. I mean, there's plenty of murders and stuff, but it also gets, I think, a little more risque in some cases. So that's sort of a weird proviso to put on a game that seems to be so family friendly. So maybe that's something to keep in mind. But a solid, interesting game, but Spiel des Jahres winner, I don't know. Certainly did not scratch the quote unquote gaming itch that I like to have, satisfied when I play a board game.
So one of the main questions I have about this, Mark, in the context of like the more complex case, like, does that ultimately mean that you're just following more threads? Like, is there this idea that there's more information to have to backtrack? Is any of that interesting? Is some of it false? Does some of it like lead you in ways that aren't connected to the case? How much of this is more than just a picture hunt?
Not super much more. There are some things that you have to sort of infer. Again, I think I've played 5 of the 16 missions. There have not been any red herrings that maybe there are red herrings and I didn't follow them or didn't find them, because you'd have to also find them. So it wasn't a situation where I was following false leads. It was mostly a situation where there was more to follow, but also it was more about inferring. In the more advanced cases, there's a lot of, oh, well, why did he kill them? Or why did this happen? And that's something where it's not as clear cut. It's not as like, okay, you're pointing to this. You sort of have to, by the behaviors of the characters, pick up why something happened. So there's that, but it's not sort of like another level of the game, I think. It's not so much more advanced than the introductory. More quantity than sort of like degree or anything.
Right.
And that is MicroMacro Crime City.
I kind of want to buy the game and not read any of the cases, but just study the map like a tryhard. You know what I mean? And then like really impress someone and show up and like we open the case and I just know I know who killed who and immediately.
The advanced way to play is like just look at that first card where you are told who the dead body is and then just follow it and then without looking at anything else and then try to answer the questions that are presented.
Like answer all the questions at once after you've examined like the crime scene type
exactly.
thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So before we move on with the rest of the episode, we have a little bit of housekeeping here. We have a board game barrage draft winner to announce.
Da-da-da.
2 winners to announce, in fact. This is a draft we did a few episodes ago where we were drafting the Board Game Geek 101 to 200 top games. And the winner of the 3 tanks who participated is... Can I please get a drum roll? Me!
Great.
Good job, Neilan.
Thanks, Christina. With 49.3% of the vote, the draft collection of Hunter, Teutonica, Kemet, Ra, Yokohama, and Deception, Murder in Hong Kong wins, and the lucky winner of the $50 gift card to a online retailer of your choice. Your email address begins with a T and ends with a G. We will be emailing you shortly to get your prize to you.
Let the record show that Neilan's margin of victory does not match the record of margin of victory or highest percentage of votes, which is held by one of the other tanks. I'll not mention who.
Wait, what was your margin of victory?
I thought this was the highest, actually.
58.1%. I mean, not that I know that. 58.1.
In the patron draft?
Yeah. So
I hadn't
it's still
remembered
good.
that.
It's still good. I'm not saying it's not good. It's just not as good.
It's second best
Yeah.
out of
Second
3.
best sounds about right.
At least it's not last out of 3.
That's true.
What?
That is true. Okay, let's move on into our feature topic. This week, we are constructing a board game menu, a 4-course meal. And I think that the way we're going to do this is sort of just go person by person. Like, take us through your menu, take us through your reasons. Give us the experience of what it would be to be dining at Café La Christina.
Am I going first?
Take us through your board game menu.
All right, I will happily do so. So first, I want to tell you all how I envisioned this menu. I'm calling my menu Dinner Party because I am inviting over 3 friends for a dinner party, and these 3 friends are people who in theory like games, but And this is real. I have a lot of friends that fall into this category. They like playing games, but they're not quite ready for Cthulhu Wars or even maybe innovation. So this is a menu that will whet their appetite for more board games, but satisfy their current craving for the board games.
Wow, I love all the food language.
Okay, so for the appetizer, we were given pretty clear, thank you Habilis for being so descriptive in what each course of the meal would entail. So our first course is the appetizer. The idea is that not quite everyone is here yet, although my friends are pretty punctual and I am only inviting 3 people over. So hopefully they'll all be here because we are starting our dinner party with a friendly, sweet little game of Happy Salmon. It's going to get loud. It's going to be silly. It's going to get everyone on their feet. It's going to get everyone laughing. It's going to break
Touching.
the ice. Not that these are my friends. We don't need to break the ice. But I do think that they will enjoy this. None of my friends have played Happy Salmon, so this is like a no-brainer, right? For those who don't know what Happy Salmon is a party game in which you are slapping each other's forearms, just like salmon.
Thanks for clarifying.
And you're screaming, you're trying to match, and you're trying to be the first person to match other people and get rid of all your cards. It is fast and furious and fun, and maybe I could even serve some salmon nigiri on the side.
This got picked up by a different publisher. I think North Star is no longer publishing it, but it is going to someone big, right?
Yeah, I forget who.
Splatter.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's
Splatter.
Exploding Kittens.
Yes, it is.
Any concern, Christina, about like
All the touching.
people like coming to your house for a game night and you starting off with them like dancing around and acting like salmon?
Well, my friends know me, so they pretty much know what they're getting into. I don't think they would expect anything less. And I think that while there is an initial discomfort with this game, and of course it's not for everyone, but I think for a lot of people, after that initial discomfort, if you can get yourself to like slap fins with somebody else for 5 minutes and jump around and be silly, it really sets the tone for a good night. Everyone's laughing, everyone's having a good time.
Everyone's sort of loosened up. Yeah, I get that.
Loosened
That
up.
makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're like dancing around. Yeah, literally loosened up.
All right.
So
You sold me.
that's my appetizer. My amuse-bouche, we don't know how to say that, but that's
I think
what
it's
we're
a moose
guessing.
bouche.
I don't think I've ever had this. I was reading about it, and I think maybe it's like the free chips and salsa you get at a Mexican restaurant. Is that what it is?
No.
Okay, well, regardless, my amuse-bouche is...
I think it is a moose bouche. I think it is a moose.
Okay, my amuse-bouche. It sounds so funny no matter what. Neilan, how do you say it?
I'm pretty sure it's amuse-bouche, yeah.
Amuse-bouche, like that?
Yeah.
My amuse-bouche is... You might start noticing a theme. My next dish is Deep Sea Adventure. So... Deep Sea Adventure is a very, very light and beautiful Oink game. Most Oink games are beautiful, but this is one of the first Oink games I ever played, actually. And I think that it would be very easy to get a group of 3 other people really engaged in this game really quickly. This is a cute, fast little push your luck diving game. You're pretending to be a deep sea diver, and it is shocking how far you think you can go the first time to get your treasure, and then you realize very quickly that you cannot go that far and you end up drowning. It's not exactly it, but I think that moment in that game, especially like a first game of it where you realize like, oh my gosh, I can't get back up, is really fun for new players. And I think that my friends would enjoy Deep Sea Adventure with a little chef prepared yellowtail nigiri.
So we're having sushi.
Yeah, the sushi pairings are what's really making this.
Okay, so that's Deep Sea Adventure. Any objections, questions, thoughts?
No, I like it. I like it.
Kellen, amuse-bouche?
No, I think there's something
Yeah.
funny about Deep Sea Adventure where you just get people to start rolling the dice, and then like 2 turns in, you go, oh, by the way, like you're running out of oxygen, and then they all like die. I feel like that could hook some non-gamers in a pretty funny way.
My next course is the entree. So here you got to remember, we want to keep our friends engaged. They're already delighted. They're loosened up. They're delighted. They're obsessed with board games at this point because how could they not be? So we're going to continue with that, keep that obsession growing. And we're going to do that with a little game I like to call The Quest for El Dorado. That's what it's called. I don't call it that. The Quest for El Dorado.
Everyone calls
it.
You do call it that, just to be.
The Quest for El Dorado, as I have talked about a lot, is such a delightful little adventure game. You're racing. It's an intro to deck builder. It's really, really good for non-gamers or people who are new to gaming. And I think it would definitely have the weight of a longer game because you would have to teach people about deck building, right?
Right.
Sometimes that takes people a little bit to catch on. So I think that, again, just like with my other two games, they might have a little hesitancy at first, but then once they get into it, they're just going to be just as delighted as all of us are at these games. And the Quest for El Dorado will not disappoint my dinner party. And alongside the Quest for El Dorado, I will serve some
tuna nigiri.
Golden.
There's only one correct answer here, Christina.
Uh-oh. I don't think I'm going to get it right. Golden tempura. That was wrong, huh, Neilan?
No, my answer is dumb, but there's a fish called Dorado.
Oh, could you eat it, though?
I don't know. Maybe. Who can say?
Golden was good, though.
Tempura fried Dorado.
Yeah, exactly. Golden tempura Dorado.
I love it.
Okay. Golden tempura Dorado is the entree. And we hope that Dorado is an okay fish to eat. Lastly, for dessert, everyone is going to have had their fill of delight. And they're going to, again, be obsessed with board games at this point. I think I'll be the number one person for making people obsessed with board games after this dinner party. And so, for dessert, we are going to break out a little game of True Colors.
Nice.
We've loosened up. We've pushed our luck. We've raced with our decks built. And now we're ready to learn more about each other than we ever thought we would know. And it's going to be shocking. It's going to be sad. It's going to be tear-filled. People are going to get angry. But at the end of the night, we're going to love each other more. We're going to hug. And we're going to say, I didn't mean it. You aren't the most annoying person in the room. I just had to vote for somebody, and I wasn't allowed to vote for myself in the version of True Colors that I own. And along with True Colors, I will be serving mochi in all different colors.
I love it. That is a complete menu, both in games and in food. Although I'm allergic to seafood, so I'll have to pass on the invitation. No, I'm not. I love seafood.
You weren't invited.
Yeah. Well, she said her friends are punctual, so I assumed I wasn't one of them.
Dinner party is served.
Nice.
Thank you, Christina, for that delightful menu. Mark, tell us what's happening in your board game menu.
All right. Well, I didn't come up with a menu title, so I'm already less of a chef than Christina is. But my idea was actually similar to Christina. I was thinking that it would be sort of a 4-player situation. So I'm inviting 3 people. And for me, the idea was, again, similar to Christina, the idea was that the other people who were coming were familiar with games, but perhaps not quote unquote gamers. You know, I think if you're going to have gamers over, they sort of already know what they want, or in terms of like showing them things, I think it's less opportunity to show interesting things to gamers because they've probably seen it or seen some version of it. So
they've pre-ordered their food before they arrive.
Right, exactly.
True gamers.
Right. They're the foodies of this analogy. So what I was looking for were games that were relatively quick. You know, it's one night of gaming. So every game had to be relatively quick. And I wanted it to sort of encompass everything gaming had to offer. And I wanted the games to be, again, relatively simple to teach and just sort of like all-encompassing idea of what games are. Also trying to show interesting side of games that, again, people who are not in the hobby might not be familiar with. So for the appetizer, we're going to start strong because, you know, you've got to grab them quickly, got to grab them from the start. I'm going to go with Biblios. Look, I knew it. I know. It's the choice that you were expecting, and I did it. I was trying to figure out a way to do without Biblios. It just can't happen. Can't do it.
I think you're admitting that Biblios will never be that main entree.
I did expect it to be
up.
your entree, honestly.
I mean, no. And I think that's part of Biblios' amazing aspect of Biblios. So the idea was
it
that
never leaves you satisfied.
No, not true. You always want more. But the idea is that it's an appetizer where, you have people who are, some people may be over, some people are not there yet. My friends are not as punctual as Christina's, so I might have just 2 or 3 or all 4. And Biblios, I think, shines at all player counts. Just a couple days ago, I was at a game night and we were trying to figure out a game to play to fill in some time, and somebody suggested Biblios. And every time I play Biblios nowadays, I always think to myself, is this the play where I'm going to be like, what have I been doing all these years pushing Biblios? Like maybe it'll fall off. And yet again, loved it. It's just such a great game, honestly. So I think it fits the idea of an appetizer because you can play it with 2, you can play it with 4. And it fits my criteria because you have auction, you have drafting, you have hand management, you have set collection, everything. You've got a lot of game in a short amount of time, a short, even like table presence. Bang for the box, bang for the length of time. I think Biblios is hard to beat. So for my second course, the amuse-bouche, I went a little different. I know an amuse-bouche is generally like a 1-bite thing. It's like a very small appetizer, but I'm going to go for a more full appetizer.
Like chips and salsa.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going, more chips and salsa, less like finger food or whatever. So I'm going, and this is probably going to be my most controversial pick, but I'm going with the Estates for second. So the reason I picked the Estates is this is a economic game. I like economic games. If I was going to introduce people to a set of games, I'd want some sort of economic aspect to gaming, and the Estates fills that. It's also, I think, in the way that it does the scoring, where some of the columns may be negative scoring, and it may be a situation where 1 or 2 points wins you the game, or it may be a situation where you need a bunch of points to win the game. I think that's a very different experience in board gaming. I think that while the Estates is economic, it's got sort of a bidding auction system that you'll find in a lot of games. The way it implements those is, I think, very fresh. I think there's not a lot of games that are like the Estates, and I think the Estates has given me the most like heart-pounding moments of any board game that I've played. And it would be rough, I think, maybe to introduce this to new players, but I think you will show them where the highs can be. You would show them where, like, how crazy and how rough, quote unquote, a game might get. I remember our first play of the Estates at Gen Con years ago, and just thinking, wow, this is like crazy. This is like a game unlike any I've played. So I just want those like fresh experiences. So that's my second game up.
It's like the perfect game for you to con all the people that come over, and 4 turns in, they have no dollars, and you've got them all.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
So are you conning them? Like, what is it?
I'm just asserting my dominance for the rest of the night.
Yeah,
you have
okay.
to show them.
Got it, I get it.
Yeah, early on.
Wait, you forgot to tell us what food you're serving with Biblios and now the Estates.
Right. Okay, so Biblios, biblical, what do we got? We're going with milk and honey. Like honey, you dip the bread in the honey and you have a little milk on the side. Estates, you've got building, you've got construction, you've got... What is a construction?
Some
worker?
sort of building or construction related food.
You know, how about pretzels? You can because you can build stuff with pretzels. So pretzels. Not as elegant a meal as Christina's, but we are where we are.
Sounds good so far.
So my next game, here I wanted an area control. I wanted a troops on the map game. I wanted variable player powers, another sort of aspect of gaming to introduce people, like where each faction is wildly asymmetric. So for this game, I selected Rising Sun. You've got the minis. You're going to be showing people wargaming, these big minis, these powers, a game with a huge table presence, a little touch of negotiation. I know it's not the successor to diplomacy that it was touted to be, but there is a little bit of negotiation. There is a little bit of teamwork, which I think would be fun to sort of get people to team up together and then maybe backstab and stuff. And again, table presence, game unlike many others. You know, a lot of games do the same sorts of things that Rising Sun does, but not... I think maybe as well as Rising Sun in most cases. So yeah, my entree would be Rising Sun.
What about Ankh?
I've yet to play Ankh. I see the huge boxes of Ankh behind you as we record, and it is intimidating.
Are you impressed by the size of my Ankh?
I am. I've always been impressed by the size of your Ankh. I think this is the easiest one. Well, I was going to go with something sushi related for Rising Sun, but Christina's already emptied out the sushi at the store. So
emptied out the ocean. You also have to make sure it matches pretzels and milk and honey.
Oh, that's right. Well, Kellen's the resident Japanese expert. So, Kellen, what goes with milk and honey and pretzels? That's Japanese.
That's Japanese.
Yeah.
What?
Mochi.
Butterbread.
Oh, butterbread.
Butterbread. Okay. Don't know what it is, but we're serving it. And then finally, I'm going to wrap it all up.
Entree butterbread for dinner.
Yeah. Butterbread. Famous for being an entree.
It's technically French, but they do serve it all over Japan.
Okay. I've literally no idea, except for imagining buttered
It's
bread.
so good. It's the best bread you'll ever have. It's like, I can't even describe
It's
it.
like a sweet bread.
No, it's not. It's savory. It's a little salty. It's like the layered butter of croissant, but it's like the squishiness of a really, really good loaf of bread. But it's like kind of in a croissant shape, but it's not layered like croissant. It's just buttered like croissant.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Does sound good.
It is
Somewhat.
so good, and there's like big flakes of salt on top.
That sounds good. All right. So that's what we're serving. Congratulations.
Kellen, you don't have anything to add about butterbread?
I already said I love it.
Yeah, but describe it better.
For people that really want to know about butterbread, Kellen.
Yeah.
All right.
They
and we're
can't
going to wrap
Google
this
it. They have
meal
to
up.
learn from us.
We're going to wrap this meal up with a nice dessert. Speaking of Japanese games, we're going oink. We're going fake artist goes to New York to wrap it up. This is going to introduce hidden roles. This is going to introduce drawing in board gaming. This is a game that I've played with people who are not heavy gamers. And once I sort of introduced that whole hidden roles thing, it's always been a blast. I think it'll be a great way to end the night with some laughs and maybe some drawings they could take home. And that will be my dinner. So we're going to start with Biblios, follow that up with the Estates, Into Rising Sun, and wrap it up with Fake Artist Goes to New York. And I'm going to have kept some of the mochi from Christina's dinner and use it to pair with the Fake Artist sort of Japanese thing. So if you want mochi, come to our dinners because we got plenty of it.
Thank you, Mark, for that delicious sounding menu. This is what I have lined up. And I kind of took I would say a pretty different tack with this, because when I was thinking about the entree game, like something like a sidereal confluence, I kept rolling around in my head, and I kind of just wanted to, we spoke about it last week, so I kind of thought I'd give myself a like tighter restriction. So I just went with a theme for all of these games, and I thought the most obvious one to go with was food-themed games. So for my appetizer, the game I went with is Paku Paku, and I was drawn to this by something in Habilis' description about a game that you could be playing, and as people are showing up, they can just join the game and it's going in progress. And that like matches one-to-one with how we've played Paku Paku in the past. It's a game that people are playing as you arrive at a game night, and then you just sit down and you're also playing Paku Paku. Paku Paku is a real-time dice game. It's exceedingly silly. It's extremely light. And what's great about that is that you can teach someone the game and have them playing within 30 seconds. All you're doing is rolling dice in real time. If you roll a specific face, you pass that die to your left. If you roll a red face, then you then have to stop what you're doing and add one piece to this tower of plates and cups that's all going in the middle. But as you're doing that, you're not rolling any more dice. So dice are starting to collect from the player to your right. And you just kind of just keep rolling them, trying to stack stuff up and keep passing the dice as quickly as possible without knocking over the tower in the middle. Because as soon as that happens, the round is over. It's great because you can sort of start to like push dice towards other players. It's very simple. It's great. It has some very high moments. It's a great way to get people energized and excited and like just having fun right off the bat.
The thing that I like about our games of Paku Paku is that either the game or the round ends when somebody has all the dice collected in front of them. And again, as Neilan said, you're trying to roll the dice to try to move the dice along. And in our games, when somebody is having trouble rolling the dice, and they are the one that is most likely to end the game and therefore get eliminated sort of from winning it, we often will yell like, kill him, kill him.
Get him!
We'll jump on that person like they're an injured gazelle. So it's been a source of
Oh my gosh. I feel like I've been in that person, and it's so stressful, but kind of funny too.
So then moving on to the amuse-bouche, I kind of went the same tack as Mark, which is, this is not necessarily a quick bite-sized game, but it is a game that is relatively quick. It can take about half an hour. It's not super light, and it kind of embraces the idea of being quick, and this is Kitchen Rush. This is a real-time cooperative game, and what I like about this is that it is a cooperative game. It is going to be the only cooperative game on my menu. And that in itself, it gives a sort of different flavor. The way Kitchen Rush works being real time is there's a bunch of just different like mini games and stations around and sand timers that are your workers. And you're moving them from station to station and you can't move them again until the time runs out. And you're trying to fulfill orders really, really quickly in order to get a certain amount of cash in a given round. It's very easy to explain and it plays fairly quickly. You're either going to fail spectacularly quickly or do very well. So I think it fits this role nicely. It also had a really good revised edition, which by all accounts streamlines things a little bit and cuts off some of the overhead and rules burden a little bit. So that's Kitchen Rush. And all this is building to the game that I couldn't avoid putting in the spot because it is a feast. It is a feast for Odin. It is a all-encompassing game that brings in so many different elements across board gaming. You've got polyominoes. You've got worker placement. You've got all these different mini games that the worker placement entails. You've got feeding people. You've got feeding your Vikings. You've got fishing. You've got whaling. You've got hunting. It just feels like this all-encompassing food preparation sort of extravaganza. It also happens to be my favorite game, and I think it just absolutely fills the role of the game that I want to build to playing on any given game night. It's also a game that the more I've taught it to people over the last year, I've discovered that it's not as hard to pick up as its weight on BGG suggests. As long as you have at least some prior gaming experience and you're willing to suffer through a long rules explanation, it is fairly easy to get what's going on in the Feast for Odin within a couple of rounds. I love A Feast for Odin, and it is...
Isn't that a criticism? Like that it's very, very wide but not very deep is basically what you just said?
No, I don't think that's true at all. Like, it's accessible, right? Like,
as a design ethos, though, that is sort of antithetical to a lot of what we talk about.
I don't necessarily agree, because like this is going to sound a little bit dismissive, but it's kind of the thing that people say about chess, right? Like you can get people playing chess quickly, but you're not going to get people playing chess well very, very quickly. They're going to understand what they're doing, but there's a lot to unpack over the course of time. I think that what A Feast for Odin does well is it has the breadth, yes, but it has depth to supplement that breadth. It both presents like a decision tree of like, these are the things you could be doing this game that's pretty wide, but then finding the appropriate way to explore each of those branches has also a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of depth to it. So that is A Feast for Odin as my entree. And then for my dessert, this one I sort of struggled with, but there's a little game that I kept coming back to, which is a very simple roll and write, and I thought was appropriate for a dessert wine, and this is Avenue. Avenue is kind of a very quick game that you can play. Again, the idea of this being this is the game you would play at the end of the evening. It's a wind-down game. It's very light. You can kind of just all be chilling on the couch with your pads. You don't even need to be around a table for this. And the idea is that someone reveals a card, and then everyone has to draw a route on their little wine route simultaneously. And then whoever has the best wine network that's moving through wine estates and vines and grapes at the end of the game does the best. So it's a very sit down and chill, just grab your pad and pen, and let's all just have a very pleasant game of Avenue. And that is my dessert. I did not have pairings for each of these, Christina. I'm very sorry.
I didn't either, honestly. I just thought it sounded fun. Well, I didn't even think about it until after I said happy salmon. And I thought, oh, salmon. So mine was kind of easy, to be fair.
Kellen, why don't you take us through your menu?
Yeah, so the way that I approached this in short was I picked a player count and then I designed a menu. So my menu is called A Table for Five. But in reality, no, I think that a lot of times you end up with a player count where everyone leaves unsatisfied because you end up just playing a bunch of party-ish games or not the games that you had hoped to play. And five inevitably always ends up at that sort of weird middle ground. And so I wanted to design a course that was satisfying with that in mind. So the first game, the appetizer game, I can't even say. It is Auf Teufel, komm, raus. This is a push your luck game where you are all playing against the devil. and it is highly tactical. There's a lot of coal in the middle of the table, and there are sort of two functions to the game. Everyone is betting on how far someone can get in the round, how much they can push their luck without getting got, and then everyone takes a turn trying to see how much they can push their luck. I think this game is beautiful, easy to explain, and it's very inviting. It also has a super, super strong catch-up mechanism where you can literally make a deal with the devil. So I thought if someone was late to game night, you could put them in there and then they could make a deal with the devil real quick, catch up into the game, but just have a good time. And this is one that I think has a lot of table presence and is a good appetizer game. So that is Auf Teufel, komm, raus. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. And I'm sure it translates to something.
Is it German?
Possibly.
I thought we spoke German now.
It is German.
Well, I
feel like we should know how to pronounce German words now, Kellen.
Why?
Well, after 3 seasons of Dark,
Oh, after 3 seasons. Yeah.
I have literally learned German words from
Great.
watching this show. So I don't know why you didn't learn Auf or Teufel or komm or raus, because those were all in the show.
So as I sat and tried to come up with a 4-course meal, I realized that was bougie, so I do not have a second course to my meal. The main course for my 5-player game night is Keyflower. Now, I actually have 2 choices here. It's Keyflower or Libertalia. For me, it's got to be Keyflower, but if you have a little bit of people who are less gamery focused, Libertalia would be great, but for me, the game would be Keyflower. Keyflower gives you everything. If I can play Keyflower in 1 or 2 more games, I have had a great game night. So Keyflower is a worker placement auction game that is strongly competitive, fiercely mean, and has combos where you're trying to figure out what the best way to go in the round is, where you're having to pay attention to what other people are doing. It feels complicated. It is complicated. It is a perfect centerpiece. You play Keyflower and you feel satisfied. I would never leave a game night unsatisfied if I got to play a game of Keyflower, which to me is the main purpose of the entree. So we move on to the final course in my meal, which is a dessert game. And I think about dessert. And again, well, just to be clear, I don't really agree with the premise of this episode, but maybe that's not coming through.
Well, you've established that
Coming
by
through very
skipping
clearly,
courses.
Kellen.
Yeah, because at any time, I would prefer just to talk around the games. And no, I'm serious. And so when it's like, there's like this insane need to always be playing, like people could be showing, Mark's like 5 minutes away and it's like, okay, what game are we going to play for the 4.5 minutes until Mark opens the door? Anyway, so if people after dinner are digesting their meal, I'm not going to shove ice cream in their face. But if I had to, we would play 6 nimmt. Now, 6 nimmt is perfect for dessert because it doesn't matter that much. It's exceedingly silly. You have some control over the chaos, but not that much. And if people want to leave and go home, you can actually keep playing. It's a round-based game, which I think really helps because this is the thing where people are awkwardly going, am I leaving? Am I staying? What am I doing? It doesn't matter. You can leave after 1 hand of 6 nimmt and we can keep playing. It's not going to affect the game. This is a quintessential filler game and one that I do not play enough and wish I got to play more. That would be my course, my table for 5. We would start with Auf Teufel, komm, raus, the main course, Keyflower, and the dessert, 6 nimmt.
You don't want to suggest any food pairings?
My guess is no.
I decline.
I have a comment about Mark's list, Mark's menu. Mark, you have a good menu, but I think you are trying to teach. I think it's a teaching menu. I think that every game that you put on your menu, you're like, now I'm going to teach them about variable player powers. Now I'm going to teach them about
Everything. I'm trying to teach everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you're teaching them about money. You're teaching them.
First and foremost, I'm a teacher. Second most, I'm a giver. Third, I'm a chef. Fourth, I'm a menu organizer.
Which is why you're serving butterbread as your entree.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that was your goal for your menu.
Yeah, no, it's clear. It's a clear goal.
So those were our board game menus, but we want to hear your board game menus. So I think this is a fun little game to play, like trying to come up a little four-course meal of board games. And we want to hear what your suggestions are, what your board game menus look like.
And we'd like to be invited to your menu.
What?
Well, I'm saying that they can invite us if they want, or maybe they'll say like they only want for this menu, they only want to invite me, or for a different menu, they might only want to invite Neilan.
So you're saying propose a menu and a tank
Yes.
to invite to the party?
Sure,
Yeah,
tell us who your menu's for. Exactly. I love it. And the best way to do this is going to be in our Discord, which again, you can find at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. You can hang out, talk to us there, and meet users like Habilis, who were kind enough to provide this week's topic suggestion to us. So thank you again, Habilis.
I'm going to be in the Discord being like a restaurant critic when people give me the menus.
Ooh, that's good.
I'm going to be like, the appetizer was trash.
And most importantly, we absolutely demand food pairings with every item in your menu. That is going to do it for this show. As always, you can find us on all of our social media. You can find us on Facebook at boardgamebarrage.com/Facebook. You can find us on Twitter at BRDGameBarrage. Or you can email us if you have other topic suggestions or just want to write in with questions or feedback or, compliments. Always like a good compliment. So that is at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for listening and for joining us on the Board Game Barrage. Thank you, as always, to Heart Society for our intro and outro music. What's on your mind, kid? Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
And bon appetit.
Ooh, man, you stole it. Goodbye.
This is Kellen on microphone number 1.
Christina on microphone number 2. Mark, I know you saw me saying I was going to join and you immediately got worried because I know I make these episodes take a longer time to edit.
No,
but this
what are
is
you
my
talking?
promise to you. I'm going to do better today, okay?
No.
Wow.
What are you're coming up with this out of whole cloth. What are you talking about?
No, it's true. I know.
It's not true.
The records are always longer. I know that it has to be longer. I have to be edited more. Anyways, but four, 3, 2, 1. What happened?
I just started recording in case we got gold.
Oh, wait, but started recording in general?
Well, no, we've been recording since we did the mic check.
Is this like the other day when you didn't tell me we were still recording and then I started singing and you got... Kellen, isn't this illegal?
It is illegal. Have you heard your
Thanks, Mark.
off the record music yet?
I have not listened to it, no.
Oh, that's a shame.
I guess I'm scared to, honestly.
Yeah, so you haven't heard the remix then?
I haven't heard any of it, no.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Probably best not to at this point.
Oh, no. Anyways, what were we talking about, Mark, before Kellen interrupted us? Oh, yeah, I was apologizing and saying this time I'll do better.
Yeah, no, but I don't think that apology is necessary.
Well, don't worry, because this is my kind of topic. You're talking about 4-course meal. Who knows more about 4-course meals than me? Nobody.
Sure, you're literally eating right now.
I'm literally
As if
eating.
to burnish your qualifications.
You're doing your research
That's right.
live.
Anytime there is food in a topic, I should be there.
That's true. That's what we've always said.
That's what we've always said, and we can't go back on it now.
That's right.
I am committed to playing it.
And I really... Sorry. That was mid-ice cream. I'm sorry. This is why you're not supposed to eat ice
This
cream.
is why we don't eat on podcasts, Christina.
But now I'm the only one that said something mean. I said something mean, and nobody else
I don't
did.
think you said anything mean.
Yeah, I called Mark a teacher.
Yeah,
How dare you?
you got him.
We're revealing more about yourself if you think that's an insult to call someone a teacher.
It's a joke. Ooh, man, you stole it. Goodbye.
Were you actually going to say that?
No, but when I said he stole it, I meant that was a good one, and I wish I thought of it.
Got it.